Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Needs Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this show, we watch shows week to week and analyze and break them down and try to have some fun along the way, usually with a co-host. And in this case, we have Darren with us again.
Hello, hello.
And we will primarily be talking about Dope Thief. We've been shopping around on and off. We hit pay dirt with Paradise. We were looking for something to watch in the interim. We weren't really sure, fishing around for something to watch. We tried to watch Prime Target. I don't know if you kept with that one or not, Darren.
I did not. No,
I did not either.
Yeah, first two episodes and that was it.
I think we watched that show. And then the very next week, we tried Paradise and we're like, okay, we got a winner. And it really was a winner. Very popular here on the podcast for us. Hope you enjoyed that coverage. And we are definitely going to be talking about Andor in the near future. But in the interim, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff coming out. And one thing I suggested I thought would be an interesting show to watch, and we'll get Darren's reaction to this, is this show, Dope Thief, on Apple TV Plus, which just premiered last week. Before we get to that, I have house cleaning to get out of the way. First of all, I keep forgetting to bring this up. We had some feedback from one of our listeners who wanted to know more about your Bollywood in your bio on Letterboxd. You mentioned that you were an extra in a Bollywood movie. So Paul from the UK wanted to know more about that and what was the name of the movie and what was your experience?
It was a long time ago, almost in a previous life. I did have to look up the name of it because I didn't know the name at the time. Maybe it didn't have a name. It's called Salam Namaste. I've never seen it. It was one of the first Bollywood shows that was filmed or partly filmed in Australia. And I was like just an unemployed kind of bum working on short films and TV and commercials and stuff in Melbourne. Yeah, got the call if you want to come for a day hanging out on a street scene for this Bollywood film, which sounded a lot better than it was, but it was a free feed. And I think we just ate roti all day. But what was interesting is that the guy that was starring in it was a big star, a big Bollywood star. So throughout the day, there was just lots and lots and lots of people that would come through. They found out about the shoot and they would come and the guy was super friendly. I don't know what his name is, but he was taking photos with all the fans that were coming through, mostly young girls. And so, yeah, it was cool. But, yeah, never seen it. Don't know whether I made the final cut, but it was a fun experience. And the guy was super cool, and we got him to take a photo of us while other people were watching. So I think we were being a bit smart ass there. But, yeah, so that's it.
I was going to ask if you made it into the film, but if you've never watched it, I guess you wouldn't have known.
No idea. No, I might have to seek it out.
And you weren't paid for this? Is this free work?
Free work, yeah, food, working for food, which was just as good as money back then.
Yeah, I was an extra in an Adam Sandler movie in a crowd shot, the one Anger Management, the one with Jack Nicholson. And I was like this close to them while they were shooting a scene, not on camera. I was standing there. They were moving us from one location to the other. It's pretty interesting when you see how a film is made behind the scenes. A big scene in that movie where they're in a baseball stadium and they only had a few hundred of us, and they basically moved us depending on where they were shooting. So in transitioning from one side of the arena to the other, they told us to stop because they're shooting the scene, and I stopped dead in my tracks, and I was like 4 feet away from Jack Nicholson yelling at Adam Sandler, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so close to Jack Nicholson. I could strangle him if I wanted to. I didn't want to, but I could have.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I did come across they were shooting some other film in Melbourne at one stage when I was there, and it was some street scene, and I just sat down and started watching the setup, and I was just chatting to the guy next to me, and I realized it was Guy Pearce. Oh, wow. I was like, he kind of was looking at me like, what are you doing here? And I was just a passerby sitting around checking it out.
I hear he's very friendly, so you could have probably...
He was a very nice guy, yeah. Yeah, but then once I realized it was him, I was like, oh, maybe I probably shouldn't be here.
I'm probably in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I'm in front of the camera. Okay, the other follow-up questions were my own follow-up. You emailed me at one point in reference to the White Lotus, and you mentioned that A, you've been to a snake show, and B, you've been to a full moon party.
A is correct. B, my wife has actually been to a full moon
Okay.
party. I haven't, so she was there for her 21st
Oh, wow.
birthday, and we were having a chat about it while watching it this week, and she said it's just like that. You get these buckets of like Red Bull and vodka, but she said it's like the
God.
Thai Red Bull, so it's the
Mhm.
ultra concentrated formula. So that just keeps you awake all night. um, and she said there was a pretty dodgy story. She was getting dropped home on the back of like a pickup truck with a whole bunch of other backpackers. And there was a couple of American guys who weren't happy being dropped off at one place. They started making a bit of a scene. And she said the Thai driver just got out of his truck, took out this giant machete and started having a conversation with them, and they very quickly just shut down.
Changed their tune very quickly.
She said it had been a very long night, and she was like, this is it. This is where it ends.
One way or the other.
So, yeah, that was pretty funny. But I did go with her to Thailand another occasion, and she was very keen to see a snake show. And these guys, as soon as we walked in, they targeted me straight off. They knew that I was not comfortable getting this python draped around me for the photo as soon as you walk in. These guys were just following us around, just hassling me, knowing that I was supremely uncomfortable with the whole situation. My wife loved every minute, and I think she's got this video of me in the actual snake pit, surrounded by these cobras or something. I don't know what they were. I was just surviving at this stage. And I'm sure that they had their teeth removed or something, that it wasn't dangerous, but it did not feel fun at all. And yeah, watching that episode of The White Lotus brought all those memories back. And yeah, that photo pops up on our Google home screen every now and again. And yes, she just laughs and laughs and laughs. And yeah, not fun. Not fun, Victor.
How far back was that?
That was only a few years ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then she got into the pit as well, and she was comfortable, loved it, just had a ball. And I was just sitting there going, no, thank you.
As long as they could get to the hospital in that window of time to get the.
There's no hospitals nearby. It's just so random.
I noticed that you were catching up on Academy Award nominated films, but I wanted to mention that Hulu, of course, had the big premiere this week of Anora on their home screen, and very popular there. Of course, as you would expect, it won Best Picture. But next week, just 1 week later, they have another huge premiere. They have Complete Unknown, A Complete Unknown, which I know you've already seen it, but I noticed in your letterbox that you've seen both Anora and Conclave, right? Two films that were, Anora was very high on my list of best films of the year, and Conclave was probably in my top 10. If it missed my top 10, it just barely missed it. It was definitely up there for me as well.
I really liked Conclave. I mean, it's not the most appetizing synopsis when you read about it, but I just kept hearing good things about it. And fascinating the whole process of what electing a new pope is. And I thought it was thrilling. Someone ruined the ending for me.
Oh, really?
So I didn't know who was gonna, but I heard there was kind of a bit of a twist about the identity, which didn't really bother me. It didn't ruin the movie for me. And yeah, very solid, very solid. Really enjoyed it, and looking forward to what that director does next.
Perhaps the next Ocean's film. That apparently is what he's.
That's right.
That's
yeah.
the rumor.
Well, I mean, supremely confident film. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Did you see All's Quiet on the Western Front, the Netflix film?
I have not seen that, no.
He also
That's
directed that, and that's exceptionally well made. I would say, even if you don't watch the whole thing, but I do recommend it, the first 20 minutes or so is basically a mini movie that encapsulates everything you need to know in the film itself. And it is incredible filmmaking. Once you're in 20 minutes, I'm sure you'll probably watch the rest of it. But everybody, if you think you don't want to watch this film, it's nearly silent. I mean, maybe in honor of the silent film, of course, the original version from over 100 years ago. The film is just incredibly technically well made. And it is this metaphor, these soldiers being recruited, riled up by their teachers to fight for the Nazi cause. And then you see them make it to the front lines and then you see the terrible outcomes of that, and then you see the processing of the bodies eventually, and then you see it goes all the way back, and then now you see a whole other squad of kids all being riled up to go back into battle again. This metaphor for this, like the war machine, and it's just incredible filmmaking, really.
Wow. Yeah, I'll check that out.
And I thought Conclave, excellent, beautiful. There's some of the images there, just those people in white walking through Vatican City with their umbrellas, and just as incredible images. Ray Fiennes' face is incredible. Like the camera is always like right on him. You can see him thinking on camera, which is something that is hard to pull off. Like only the best actors, I think, have that ability of letting you see an emotion, or he suddenly is making a discovery, and you see it all happening on his face, and his face just fills the screen. His performance is really amazing as well. I would have been happy if he won Best Actor this year. He really deserved it, I think.
Yeah, last time I saw him, last thing was The Menu, which
he was great in that.
It was great. Very different character as well. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's a master.
I didn't love The Menu, but I thought he was incredible in The Menu. I really loved him, that character. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun film.
And Anora, which I saw as well.
Anora, yeah, I've got to catch up on your podcast episode now, because I didn't love Anora. It was a very different movie to what I thought it was going to be.
Yes, I kind of said that to you last week.
Yeah, so I understood after about halfway through. I'm like, it reminded me of Uncut Gems for some reason, just this relentless,
especially the first half.
Just this energy, and just it keeps going and going and going, and it's also this slapstick comedy almost.
Oh yeah,
just to conceive something like that and to pull it off on such a long, it's almost one scene. I mean, that middle of the movie. But yeah, I'll definitely see it again. So fun. And that actress, Mikey Madison, she's incredible. So fun, so incredible, and just by the end, you really feel like you don't know this poor character. Yeah, great fun, great film.
Yeah, check out my episode of it. I think it's definitely not the film I was expecting to see when I first saw it, and there is an aspect of it that is a rom-com. But then it's split practically in half, where the second half is like a deconstruction of a rom-com. The first half is kind of like you get the fantasy version of it, and then the second half, this is the reality version of it. And I like how the film is like commenting on its own construction in a way. Also, there's some thematic stuff going on there. In a way, I think that's what Sean Baker is saying, is that we all are prostituting ourselves for some richer person, make them feel special so that they'll give you a little bit, like some crumbs to all of us. And you see it in the film, right? It's not only Mikey, but even these other lower level goons that are all trying to kiss somebody's ass to protect themselves or to get paid or whatever they need to do. And it's like this hierarchy of prostituting yourself, basically. Anyway, I thought it's really interesting. Yeah, and that first half of the film is just like you said, just the energy of it is just like you're just shot out of a cannon. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and it's like, the dreams all come true for the characters in the first half, kind of like a Wish movie, and then it all goes south.
And then not quite.
Did you catch the when they went to Vegas, there was a sign for Strawberry live on stage from another one of Sean Baker's movies, Red Rocket.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Baker verse.
Oh, man. That's pretty cool, right? I wonder if he does that in his other films as well. I saw Black Bag, by the way, which I highly recommend. By the way, I did not see the trailer for this movie at all. Didn't see anything about it until I saw the film. And this is a terrible trailer, not because it's a badly produced trailer, but it is a complete misrepresentation of what the film is. So I think that kind of the mixed word of mouth is people think it's like an action movie. It is not. It is like a movie where people are looking absolutely impeccable and having these conversations, trying to manipulate each other or trying to feel each other out. Most of it is very methodical, is very intellectual. It's almost like John le Carré level exploration of identity through spydom as a metaphor, but also so much fun. Like people are dying while these things are happening, but it is so much fun because it's just like the dialogue and the interactions between the characters just really crackles. A lot of fun, like very adult entertainment, highly recommended. But I think the trailer makes it look way more action packed than it is. And there is action, but that's not really what the film is about. So set your expectations accordingly.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I was trying to find some time to watch it, but but couldn't. But yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll seek it out.
And I hear it's going to be on pay VOD within 10 days. So, I mean, this is what's crazy. They
Oh
complain
wow.
these movies don't make money in theaters, and then they release them on VOD 1 week later. Mickey 17, which we just covered on the podcast last week.
Hmm.
Apparently, Warner Brothers just announced that it has a 17-day window. So its second weekend, it was almost number one again here in the US. And it's doing pretty well overseas, better overseas than in the US. And now they're releasing it on home video next week. They tell us, from the word that leaks out, that this strategy is that they maximize their money in that second window. They don't have to market it. If you wanted to see the movie and you didn't get out to the theater, well, hey, you can watch it at home now. So they're kind of maximizing that audience. But I worry about the movie theater experience. If people do not prioritize going to see something in a movie theater and they know it's going to be at home in 2 weeks, how is that going to work for the actual people who own these theaters? I don't see how that's viable at all, to be honest.
It's crazy, isn't it, to think about? I mean, it's almost like if I missed Black Bag in the first weekend, which I did, I almost can't catch up now.
Yeah,
It's going to be something else.
Think about a 10-day window. That means that you could try to go see with your wife this weekend, for example. But if you miss it, it will be available to rent the following Tuesday. You're just going to watch it at home. If you are not targeting 12-year-olds or younger, by the way, because family movies are still doing very well, you're talking about a 1 or 2 week window, and then boom, it's on home video. I don't understand this strategy at all. Okay, but we are here to talk about I forgot the name of the show. Dope Thief.
Ridley Scott.
Yes. And this is just a little context before I get your general impressions of it. So this stars Wagner Moura playing Manny. We just saw him in Civil War last year. He was in Shining Girls on Apple TV Plus, which we covered here on the podcast. Me and my sister covered that one. Became famous for the Elite Squad movies in Brazil, which were massive successes, the highest grossing blockbusters in Brazilian history for quite some time, until maybe the Avengers eclipsed it, but very popular there. And of course, so big that he became an international star. And of course, Brian Tyree Henry as well, one of the best actors of his generation, already has at least two Academy Award nominations, actually. And of course, you've been catching up on Atlanta. He's incredible in Atlanta, truly incredible. I feel like he has yet not found that role post Atlanta, something like that really put him on the map. And also Kate Mulgrew, who plays Teresa, who plays Ray's like mother figure, dated his father in the course of the show. And of course, you'll know her from Star Trek Voyager and from Orange is the New Black. So those are the three biggest names here in the plot. This is based on a book by Dennis LaFoya. It's about these two friends who grew up together who pretend to be DEA agents and go after these low-level drug dealers in these stash houses where the drugs are held in these neighborhoods, usually kids, basically. And this is all a pretty small operation. But of course, things get more complicated. And the showrunner here, the screenwriter, Peter Craig, who wrote The Town, the Ben Affleck movie. Very good, by the way, if you've never seen that. He's written a bunch of things since then. He wrote The Hunger Games. He wrote the Batman movie from a few years back, the Robert Pattinson one. He did that Netflix movie, the J-Lo movie called The Mother. He wrote the story for Top Gun Maverick. He did The Gladiator 2, The Gladiator 2. I'm putting that in front of all the titles of these movies. And which is probably how he met Ridley Scott and how they hooked up on this. And Ridley Scott directs the first episode, only the first episode, I believe, although he may have done the finale as well. I guess we'll wait to see that. I didn't really feel a difference between episode 1 and episode 2 stylistically. So, but still, having his name on the credits, always a plus, of course. So, Darren, what did you think of Dope Thief?
I'm down. Very Ridley Scott, just the way that it's shot and the way that it kind of moves. I enjoyed the second episode more than the first. Mm-hmm. The first, I mean, obviously it's tough. We've talked about pilots before and how difficult they are to set it up. And you know exactly what's going to happen, where they're going to try to take down one score too big. Nothing was too surprising in that first episode. I had to watch the first episode on a phone. I don't like doing that very often, but sometimes when you're dropping kids off at activities and you got a spare hour here and there, I have to do it sometimes. And this is a show that did not look very good on a
Yeah, it's
small
too dark. Yeah,
screen. Very dark,
yeah.
very dark. Couldn't see the contrast. But then the second episode I watched on my big screen. I think it was in 4K. I'm not sure if Apple TV does 4K,
I
but it
think they
looked
do. Yeah.
really great. The grayness was the contrast was there, and the characters looked amazing, and it was filmed really well. And I think the second episode furthered the story a bit more and got me hooked for sure. Wagner Moore, I mean, I know him from Mr. and
Oh
Mrs.
yeah, of
Smith,
course. Excellent in that.
which he's so fun in
Yeah.
that, and also unlikable. Whereas I thought he was very likable in Civil War,
Mhm.
and yeah, he's not in it as much as I hoped. But Brian Tyree Henry, is that his name?
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he's been nominated for 2 Academy Awards. I've only seen him in Atlanta, where
Mhm.
he's so captivating and very comedic, and in this role he is comedic and likable, and it's a show that balances comedy with extreme violence, which I quite like in a way. And I think it's working for me, and I'm in it, and I like these characters. But geez, they're in a lot of trouble right now, aren't they?
Yeah, a lot of trouble. And it's very early in the show still. So I'm very curious to know how things play out. I completely agree with everything you said. I thought the pilot was a little rough. I have a lot of problems with pilots in general. So I kind of just bite my lip and say, I know they got to get this stuff out of the work, out of the way, right? So I do understand that. So it did feel very much like a pilot. It wasn't not really bad as some pilots can be. But it was a little, felt like a pilot, very much so. And the show started to breathe a little bit in episode 2, like you mentioned, and you start feeling the relationships between the characters. So I like that the show gives you this room to have these interpersonal scenes and how those stakes are so low in those specific scenes in comparison to literally life and death circumstances, like multiple very, very high stake situations going on in the main plot. And I like that they're balancing that. And that's where the comedy comes from, of course. If I'm going to be critical of it, I think they haven't nailed the comedy. The tone is too dark to pull off the comedy oftentimes. I think Brian Tyree Henry is getting it right. I think the show's tone is a little confusing to me sometimes, to be honest. I feel like things that should be funnier don't quite land because of the grittiness they're going for in the style of the show. But we'll see. Maybe it'll lighten over time, or maybe maybe the material gets so dark that this is the correct tone for it eventually. But I guess that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I just looked up the cinematographer. So it's Eric Messerschmidt. That's difficult to say. So he's worked with David Fincher, and he's won an Oscar for Mank, and
Okay.
he did Mindhunter as well. So yeah,
Well, see,
probably doing him a
Mindhunter is that makes perfect sense, but Mindhunter is an extremely dark show. So I mean, that is maybe not the comedic element to it. I thought of actually a show you recommended to me, which I liked very much, Mr. In Between, which is able to ride that line more easily than this show is.
Yeah, I think you're on the mark with that. Brian Tyree Henry's doing he's doing his best job to try to get that comedy over the line, and he's very likable. He's a lot more likable in this than in Atlanta. I think he's a bit more of a villain, or a little bit less switched on. I don't know.
How far did you get into Atlanta?
So I'm still going. I think I'm almost finished season 2. So it's
Okay.
getting a bit trippy. So
yes. Oh, very trippy. You'll have to wait and see where the show does a time jump when it gets to season 3. You'll see his character evolves a lot, and he's really a lovable character on that show eventually.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, here's my theory on season 2 of Atlanta, which I don't think I've said anywhere else. So you're hearing it first, but
Okay.
it is season 2 of Atlanta. Every episode is a horror movie, a different horror film. They have a different. So there's the whole being lost in the woods. There's I don't know if this is a spoiler, but am I going to be abducted on the way to the Drake mansion? I don't know if you saw that episode yet, but as you're watching the show at different points, you're like, is this going to turn into a horror movie? And they play with that, in every single episode of that whole entire season. It goes throughout.
That's funny. There's like the Get Out
Hmm.
episode as
Yep.
well. Yeah, okay, that's really funny.
Yeah. And of
Um,
course,
yeah,
Donald Glover is a big horror fan. So it's, he definitely is threading that into the show as well.
it's so clever, and they can just do whatever they want
Whatever they want. Yeah, it's
on that
fantastic.
little
Mhm.
show. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it's really really fun.
I have to do a rewatch of that at some point. Okay, so let's get into the plot a little bit. So, as I mentioned, these two guys, they pretend to be DEA agents. There's hustle's going pretty well for them. And then this is the biggest thing that threw me off from episode one. This really sketchy guy. This guy looks like a tweaker. He shows up and he's like, I got this plan. And he even does his research. He has this contact we actually visit later on out in the suburbs, son. He's like, have you ever heard of this place? And he's like, I've never heard about it. Be careful, do your own recon. And they go out there. They see this one woman who definitely looks like a tweaker. Turns out she's an undercover agent. She does a really good job of pulling this off. And before they go and try to make this bigger score, which goes terribly wrong, we see some things like Ray is an NAAA, one of those. He's really into 70s AOR rock for some reason. He's listening to the Bee Gees at one point. He's like haunted by this teenage girl who died in a car accident, whose father was a cop. What did you think about this technique? He never talks about it. We just suddenly go into black and white. We see him oftentimes having a conversation with nobody. And then all of a sudden we see that it's a memory of him when he was younger. And it flips back to this younger version of himself, this actor playing him at an earlier age, talking to this girl. What did you think about this technique, which is definitely a choice here?
It switches back to flashbacks in black and white, and it does it with his friend, not only with his ex-girl or his
Right.
girlfriend that's died, it does it with his best friend as well. Very quick, very sharp. I didn't mind it. Yeah, gives more context to the character. I did really like that you see the girl's not her grave, but her like memorial on the side of a fence when they're stopped. And I like that there's a bit of a mystery of what really happened. I don't, they don't just specifically tell you she was his girlfriend and she died and he was possibly responsible for it, but it's that information comes out slowly over the course of the episode and the second episode as well. I like these kind of slow mysteries that you can kind of piece together yourself. So yeah, that stuff worked for me.
And that seems to be the root of this addiction problem he has, right? That seems like that maybe that's
Yeah.
was the source of it.
And also that he obviously went to jail for it. I'm thinking for quite a long time,
Right.
which is he's recovering from as well.
I mean, and it's not even clear, to be honest, if and maybe there's more to this story, and he blames himself for that outcome. Yeah, I liked it too. I like that rather than having him sit down and tell a story at his NA meeting or something like that. And there's no narration or anything like that. It just is threaded throughout his own memories. And so it kind of also tells you that as he is navigating his life, these memories are just coming back in. And that's always what's triggering him, right, to go back to the drugs again.
He also met the Wagner Mora's character. Did he meet them on the bus?
On the bus,
to
right?
jail?
To jail. Yeah. It seems like they did some time together when they were very young. Maybe it was juvenile detention. Yeah.
Mm.
And they've been friends this whole time and still kind of losers who never really put themselves together. And apparently, I can only picture that this is a recent development, this stealing from the drug dens situation. They've probably tried other things in the past. Some of this stuff is pretty funny that he's like, you have to have that confident voice. If you have that control voice and people just do what you tell them to do, the head drug dealer later on, he's like, that's the voice. That's the voice. But I also like the fact that Manny kind of ready at any time. He's like, okay, we can move on to the next thing. I'm ready to stop this or cool off for a little bit before things get hot. And it always seems that Ray's always the one who's pushing it, which makes sense because of that addictive personality, always the one who wants to push it.
Yeah, and the fact that they're taking down their scores and they're getting not much money, it's like, well,
right.
we're taking these risks, but we're not actually profiting too much.
And I also like the fact that they don't make it seem like, oh, when things are just going great, like you would in a more slapstick version of this until things go bad. In that first scene, we see he almost shoots a kid, right? Because he's afraid that there's someone in the house, and it turns out to be like an 8-year-old or 9-year-old upstairs. So I'm like, not the best first impression. These guys do not have their stuff together.
And you're talking about the confident voice. So we've got this ultimate villain that we don't see. Do we know whose voice that is?
I assume it's going to be someone famous. I don't recognize the voice. I do not know what this accent is either. They're trying to tell me, oh, it's a Boston accent. I'm like, that's a Boston accent? It's not a Boston accent. So I don't know. It sounds like a Scandinavian accent or something. Either they misidentified that accent and that's the joke that they got it wrong, or it's the worst Boston accent ever, which is, who knows? That's possible. But yeah, I have no idea who this person is going to be. But I assume it's going to be somebody when they turn up. It's going to be someone recognizable, someone famous.
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
What'd you think about the Bee Gees a needle drop here? This is hilarious that I started a joke song. I'm like, oh, wow, this guy's got quite a vinyl collection.
Do you know what? I love the music all throughout. There's heaps of needle drops, and the title track is really cool. I mean, we've gone through a few series with either no title track or a terrible title track in the case of The Agency, but this one is great. It's from a chick called Little Sims. I know it from somewhere, and I can't quite pick it where I know it from, but it's it's like a recognizable sample or something. But yeah, it gives the show a lot of energy to kick it off, and it's great. It's like a bit of an urban feel, and which it should be. And yeah, I like that he listens to old school vinyl too.
And I have a little section here at the end we can talk about other films and TV series that play in this arena of like the drug deal gone wrong as a recommendations for the audience. But yeah, this has a feel of The Wire. I'll tease one of my things, but it has a little bit of that feel as well, which they're definitely trying to go for. You were talking about how they're really doing these scores and not making that much money out of it and taking a lot of risk when you consider that whole situation. Although Ray seems to be stashing it all away, so he must have some plan for that money. That way, I like the way they rationalize it when Manny's talking about how his girlfriend looks at him in the most positive light, sees him as a Robin Hood figure. And meanwhile, Manny seems to be much more aware of what he's doing here. But I do like the fact how dismissive he is of going like, hey, I'm doing, the neighborhood a good thing, right? The fewer of these drug dens we have in our neighborhood, the better, right? On the one hand, he's absolutely correct, but that's not why he's in this. That's not what he's trying to do. He just tried to make some quick cash.
These guys are like street level dudes, and they're also taking down drug dens in adjacent neighborhoods. I'm not convinced that they can do this much without covering their identity. I mean, they're going to get found out pretty soon, sooner rather than later. So you kind of have to go with it that they're able to live their own lives without getting found out, at least by these guys they're almost neighborhood drug dens.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing too, is I think that they are specifically casing out these locations where it's basically these kids, these like the lowest level of the drug hierarchy, who probably have very little street experience at all. Even if they see somebody with a badge, they just assume it's the DEA and they don't ask any questions. But if they were going after bigger targets, which of course is what they end up doing accidentally by the end of the first episode, they were going after these people who were more street savvy, knew that maybe this is a ruse of some kind, who have multiple locations where they're coordinating and strategizing regularly, then they would potentially be discovered. And Manny makes a really good point. It's not even about that. It's just the fact that imagine even at these low-level drug dealers who are working on their own, if they start hearing that the DEA is coming, then, if they just have more guns in the house, that, of course, puts them way more in a much higher risk. So this is very risky for the very limited reward, obviously, which, of course, makes the appealing idea that we're going to go out into the urban area. You obviously don't know anything about Philadelphia, but Philadelphia is just on the other side of the river for New Jersey. And it's similar here. We have Trenton and Camden, which are these lower income cities right on the opposite side of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a much more historic and a much more developed city, obviously, but of course has these inner city neighborhoods that are very impoverished. You don't have to drive far to be in the middle of Amish land, very rural areas. Like for example, on the New Jersey side, right on the other side, Vineland, where the wine growing occurs, is right outside of like Camden, which is, very low income. So it's a really weird duality, which they also explored a little bit in the same general region in Mare of Easttown as well. So a little synergy with other things we've talked about in the show. It is just a weird situation there culturally, where you just have to drive half an hour out of the middle of Philadelphia and you're in farmland. But that's how it is out there. This guy comes to them, says this is easy pickings. They don't have any kind of security. They're in the middle of nowhere, so no one even knows that they're operating that way. It's much lower risk and much higher reward than what you're doing now. And of course, going back to the idea you mentioned that they could be discovered if they're too adjacent to their own neighborhoods. Well, this is out of the way for sure. And of course, they head out to this place and it goes totally wrong. They say, we're DA agents. There's this tweaked out girl that they've been following. This is actually how they find the place, by following her in and out of the compound. And she says, you're not DEA agents, very confidently, because we discover that she is an agent herself. And this guy, Jack, who was there with her, was also an agent. Only one guy was a legitimate drug dealer, apparently, of the three who were there. This tweaker guy shoots the guy in the back of the head, stupidly, just accidentally, it seems to be. And then, of course, gunfire continues. She gets shot, looks like she's about to die, but she doesn't. She survives. Her partner does die. And this tweaker guy gets shot and dies too. The place catches fire. And as you would expect from a meth lab, it starts blowing up pretty aggressively, and which, of course, covers their tracks, luckily for them, as they escape. But they don't escape empty-handed. They escape with a bag full of over $500,000. That's the last they kept counting. And there was more to go. So well over $500,000. Plus this concentrated liquid meth, which apparently could be worth, who knows, millions of dollars additionally. And this is apparently a very big deal to more than one drug gang. And they are smack dab in the middle of it now.
Wow. That's a lot.
It's
quite unbelievable.
It all happens in the last 5 minutes. The whole last 5 minutes of the episode packed with stuff.
That there's no security, but $500,000 and this liquid meth, which sounds absolutely just destructive, doesn't it? One of his mates that he's trying to sell the drugs through. He says, "What, 1 teaspoon can fire up a whole town or something." So
yeah, it's like one of these small podunk towns that they all like. So yeah, this stuff would be a huge win for whoever is a meth dealer and conveniently in just some shampoo bottles in your basement if you wanted to.
It is clever not just taking the money, but you're taking the drugs too that you can get rid of. I like that. That's smart.
Yeah, I like that. Manny was kind of like, this can't be soap. I'm taking this with me.
I didn't pick out that the 2 of them were DEA agents out of the 3 that were on the farm. I mean, that's a little bit silly, isn't it?
Also that they don't have, they have all these toughs who come after them later on, these like biker looking dudes, that there wasn't more security there considering how essential this location was. Yeah,
exactly. And obviously their new mate was, of course, going to stuff it up for everyone.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
you just accept all of that because it's like, well, this is the premise of the show. So
the girl that survived, I thought she was a great character, and the fact that she's unable to talk, a bit of a tragedy, but it's cool for the show that she can communicate by talking to these other agents, just by writing stuff down, and she seems as hard as a rock to.
Yeah, everyone's like afraid of her.
And she still doesn't want her cover blown, which is just incredible.
She wants to preserve my cover. Yeah, so she's gonna be on the warpath when she gets out of here. Speaking of that, that's one of the things she writes down multiple times, which is that these people have started a war. And later on the iPad, this is in episode 2, but I'll jump to it now. I was looking at what she was writing. She goes that this has something to do with the alliance and this liquid meth. So it appears that this is my guessing here, but I think that this wasn't just like one drug deal. This was somehow an alliance of drug dealers, which were doing some piece because of this liquid meth, which of course could make them all rich at this giant compound. So they kind of had some kind of brokered piece. And now by them doing this, they're going to start this, and this could be very intriguing, by the way, in the show. They can start saying like, who did this? Someone broke this alliance, and now they're going to start turning on each other. So it's going to lead to a whole drug war, which I think, which I very much look forward to, by the way. So I can't wait. And they'll, of
And
course,
these
be these
guys.
idiots in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they're smart, they can use that to their, that's what I like about these kind of mob movies where you use, I mentioned Yojimbo, the classic Japanese
Hmm.
film, which is maybe the prototype of all of these. But I love this idea of somebody's who like wrong place, wrong time, and being like, there's an opportunity here actually. And I like that in general. So we'll see if they can turn this into an opportunity. And this is my theory, and you can tell me what you think about this too. This was all a setup, not only this dummy showing up, but it seems pretty clear that someone set them up. I think they've been set up by someone in this alliance, maybe even this guy who's calling them up on the phone.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see what happens.
That might also explain why was this place left open at the time, right? So they might have just conveniently been.
Yeah, this guy seemed to know exactly what went down, despite him not being there.
Yeah, he says you guys ran off in your Scooby Doo van. He saw the van. How can he not catch up with them? Yeah, so I don't know.
It-
They even hit a deer. Like they weren't that far away. So
yeah.
I think all of this was a setup, and he has them running, and he wants them to screw up, so he has someone to point the finger at, cover his own ass. That's my guess. Yeah, and then at the very end of the episode, of course, they're at the hotel counting the money and thinking about the consequences of all this. And they say nothing in our lives has ever been real until now. Until now.
Mm.
That episode, by the way, is called Jolly Ranchers, and it pays off. That comes from very earlier on, where they not only rub the drugs, but it's around Halloween, so they wanted to take the kids candy too. So they had some candy in the car, and they got some Jolly Ranchers. Episode 2 is called Bat Out of Hell, and I just realized that was the name of the episode because that spoils such a great button on this episode. That ringtone was killing me too. I'm like, what is that ringtone? I know that ringtone. Other than building out these social dynamics, it's all pretty much just continuing off of episode 1. Ray and Manny, they're covering their tracks. They burn the van. Ray is trying to get Teresa to go to Atlantic City and go gamble. He's like, get out of here, because he knows that bad stuff is coming. The batter guys are coming. Ray goes to visit Son. Like you mentioned, we saw him texting him earlier, but now he meets face to face. It is his role model in a lot of ways. This guy who was like a low-level drug dealer and now has become a family man, lives in a McMansion in some gated community somewhere outside of Philadelphia. Gives him the lowdown on what kind of what this drug might be, and gets him some Kevlar. Very importantly, they need that Kevlar later on.
I like this. I like this character and I like this family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it very interesting.
I always like these characters who are like living the suburban life and have these nefarious. I like all the secret passageways. Like he goes into this separate room, which is, basically just another library, but it's hidden away from the other room. And then, of course, there's the safe inside of that room. So it's pretty cool.
Giant safe full of weapons and drugs
and the Kevlar. Exactly. Yeah. And lucky for him, he does give him some of that Kevlar to take with him as part of his DEA disguise. And he starts asking who would have known this was going on. Does anyone else know what you were doing? And he thinks of his dad, Ray. So Ray's dad, I should say, who's played by Ving Rhames. He goes and obviously has a terrible relationship with his dad. He goes to visit him in prison. And eventually, from this conversation with his dad, he finds out that, yeah, that guy, Rick, I did do some time with him. And he mentioned this guy. This is another kind of weird plot point in the episode, where this guy called Loebsack, terrible name, by the way. And luckily it is a weird name because they don't have too many people to run down, and they head out back into this general area outside of Philadelphia to track down these people's names. They show up probably the second or third location they check. And of course, this place is, a bloodbath here. Everybody's been massacred. These are some Amish kids on their Rumspringa, as they call it. They got in with these drug dealers. Things did not end well for them. And I guess during their torturing of these kids is when they got Ray's name, right? So through this, they now have Ray's name through his father, I guess. What'd you think about this whole situation here at the farmhouse?
Yeah, some of the imagery was pretty hectic in the fact I didn't actually get that they were on Rumspringa. He did mention it, but I didn't actually think about that too much. I mean, so these kids have got they have a year of their lives, do they, to do whatever they want, and they can hook up with some hick Drug dealers
They went
probably
right to
not
the
the
drug dealers.
smartest thing
Not
to
the
do,
best
and then
combination.
get
Yeah.
tortured to death. But then the biker gang they're pretty funny.
They are, yeah. The biggest surprising laugh line here was the fact that Ray keeps getting shot in the Kevlar. Of course, realistically, these people aren't like running down the street while, like in some of these shows, you get shot 12 times in your bulletproof vest, just keep running. Every time he gets shot, he gets like knocked down by it. So he's like pretty ineffective for most of the fight, but he does get the last kill shot in at least.
And the action is done well. You know
Yeah.
where the angles are, which I think is very important in action films and action shows. You want to know where they're hiding, where the angles are, where the cover is, so you can plan your attack like these characters. I did like how he called him January 6th.
Yeah. This is not a Reacher. This is not Reacher though. If this was Reacher, Reacher would have like pulled the guys up over his head and like torn them in half, like Ricky O or something. By the way, in the last season, when they're going to cancel Reacher, whenever it gets to it, it's still hugely popular. Obviously, not anytime soon, but I wanted them to go straight up like Hong Kong Ricky O style, where he's like punching people right through their heads,
Oh, you can do that.
pulling their arms off of their bodies and beating them with them. That's what I want to see. I want to go straight up cartoon in the last season.
Why not? Let's do it.
And this is where not only the comedy come from the whole reaction to every time Ray gets shot, like, oh no, not again. But when they're cleaning up afterwards, so the car is all shut up, the windows are blown out. They're yelling about the people who are trying to kill them. You see everybody around them. Like if this is a more realistic show, the cops would have rolled up immediately, especially with the bulletproof or bullet punctured car that they're washing at the moment. Manny's using an Armor All to clean the blood off of his neck. Yeah, and then the phone starts ringing. Of course, we hear that rolling piano, and he's like, "What is that? What's that song?" And yeah, we see the feds are investigating. They go and run this all by Mina. Mina, I think that is the agent's name, the female agent who still can't speak back at the hospital. And yeah, this is when we find out that Jack was an agent also because they're going to his funeral, and that's when they're giving him the information. She's talking about protect my identity, like you mentioned, her undercover. And yeah, we have that voice on the phone again, taunting Ray. At first, it's funny where Ray just pretends to be the other guy. He's like, yeah, yeah. But eventually, he knows exactly who he is. And then Ray freaks out. Ray clears out his apartment.
Don't forget, the apartment is torn apart, and he thinks, "Oh, I'm too late. I've already
Yeah.
been here."
It's the dog. That's the best. Yeah. So then he's hiding out, gets the call. They threaten his dad. He's like, I could care less about my dad. They threaten Manny. And then he gets worried. He rolls up at Manny's place. There's another one of these biker dudes. This is actually a pretty funny chase. You see these very athletic versions of this chase through people's backyards in these shows usually. And I like this version of it, this bumbling, like smashing through fences. And like, Brian Tyree Henry is not going to be leaping athletically over these fences. So he did what he could and he got away. And of course, the punchline of all this is that truck, rolling that guy under its wheels.
Oh, and that's a nasty death as well. Not just under
that's
the
a
wheels,
rough way to go.
Squeezed up against the wall. Oh.
And in the meantime, by the way, Teresa has been telling Ray this $10,000 they need. Gave to this lawyer. Ray's thinking, oh man, someone's trying to rip her off, whatever. He's keeps getting annoyed with her that she's fixated on him making this appointment. He shows up and it turns out that it's not a male lawyer, it's a lady lawyer and a pretty lady lawyer at that. So maybe a possible romance here in the show, or at least someone that he wants to rescue, like he failed to do in his that haunted past he has. Yeah, it turns out Ray's dad is dying and is going to be coming out of jail soon. And he's not really loving this. This is still COVID, by the way. This takes 2021, I think, in the title card at the beginning. So this is just at the tail end of COVID. And that's where we ended. Oh, of course, she is the one who identifies that piano is from Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. And he's like, thank God. And it was me too. I'm like, they better not end this episode and not tell me what that song is. Of course, it was right in the title of the episode if I just looked. But I'm like, oh, thank God someone told me it was Meatloaf. It would have been driving me crazy.
And then they play the song over the credits.
Of course. So, yeah, this is Fun. I had fun with it so far. It's a short season, so I think it's only 7 episodes. So I will definitely stick with it. I'm glad to hear you're thinking of sticking with it too.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, and it's professionally put together with Ridley Scott's name on it. You know it's gonna look pretty damn good.
And Apple TV Plus, by the way, not all the shows are hits, but they spend money on these shows, so these shows look good.
Yeah, I haven't had this app for very long, so I've just been checking it out. A lot of they don't seem to have much, but what they have is quite quality so far. So yeah, and it keeps serving me up Severance every week, so why not?
Right. And of course, speaking of Severance, we have the big finale this week. Soda and I will be recording on video, a video episode recapping that show. And so stay tuned for that. They will still be available as a podcast, of course, everybody who only listens to the podcast, but we will have some video recording. At least part of it will be recorded for video as well. Okay, a few things I want to mention here that I thought about. Of course, Omar on The Wire, the whole character of Omar. Have you seen The Wire, by the way?
Love The Wire, love Omar. Yeah.
Yeah. What a great character. But if you want to see like this whole idea of this character, Omar from The Wire is the prototype. Well, not the prototype, but definitely the most current version of it in popular memory. Great character. Deli Boys, which is on right now. These two brothers, very funny on Hulu, by the way. I finished watching the show. Sona recommended it to me. These two Pakistani brothers who are upper middle class, basically pampered. Their dad owns a bunch of delis. They're just living the life of these kind of spoiled 20-somethings. And their dad dies unexpectedly. And it turns out their dad is a drug runner. That's how he's become so rich. And they suddenly have inherited this drug empire. Very funny show, by the way. True Romance, another drug deal gone wrong. If anyone hasn't seen that in a while, check that one out.
Yeah, Patricia Arquette as well in that.
Yes.
And Christopher Walken.
Yes, exactly. Any other things spring to mind?
Not sure. I'll have to think about it.
No pressure. We have to. We'll touch base next week if you want to shout out anything. And yeah, next week we will continue to talk about this. And Darren, also next week, this show, The Studio, with Seth Rogen's new comedy, also on Apple TV Plus. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, it looks similar to that show that we watched a while ago, the franchise. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to sample it. But now the reviews have come in, Darren, and the reviews are no joke. There's been multiple critics that say this is the best television show in years.
Oh my God.
Like, really? Based on the trailer, I would not have expected that. But now I'm very curious to check it out. So maybe we will sample that as well and get a review of the first couple episodes. I don't think these are long episodes. I think they are short, like sitcom level length episodes. So maybe we sample that, give a mini review of that show or the first couple episodes, and also talk about the next episode of Dope Thief, talk about the finale of Severance, of course. So plenty to talk about next week.
Wow, unbelievable. Yeah, and White Lotus is amping up as well now. I'm loving the last episode, loving that show.
I have it on our agenda that in our weekly conversations, when White Lotus wraps up, we will definitely talk about that. Maybe even before then, because like you said, I think things are picking up. But I think next week with the new studio show and of course with the Severance wrapping up, we'll probably have more than enough to talk about.
So much on at the moment. That's good.
It's so much, and there's more stuff. It's just so much.
So we don't have to talk about Prime Target or anything.
Thank God we didn't watch that. Have you heard about Mobland?
So is that Tom Hardy?
It's Tom Hardy. It's Guy Ritchie. It's Helen Mirren. I forget who wrote it, but it's a big name on the script as well.
That Guy Ritchie, he must be a busy man. He is constantly doing films and TV. Yeah.
You know, he used to be, he made movies only, and it would go like 2-3 years. And then when he was married to Madonna, I think there was like a 5-year stretch where he only made like one movie, and the one with her in it, and it was a disaster. And then he started working more frequently. But yeah, now it's like he's churning out like 1 or 2 movies a year. And there's another season of The Gentleman coming. And he's got, it's like, wow, like what's going on here? Jake Gyllenhaal in his upcoming film. It's an all-star cast, actually. I think Henry Cavill's in it as well. It's like his usual suspects, but all in one movie now. Anyway, so Mobland is coming too in a couple of weeks, and we'll probably discuss that at some point too. We'll just keep sampling shows, and we'll keep following the ones we like and drop away the ones we don't. So that's it.
Sounds like a plan. Yep, that's good.
All right. Thanks again, Darren.
All right. Cheers, Victor. Bye.
Take care.